What happens when Hollywood takes a popular movie or television show, removes everything that made it special, and turns it into a noisy Saturday morning cartoon? During the 1980s, almost no successful franchise was safe. Serious heroes became cheerful toy sellers, adult comedy became childish slapstick, and famous characters were given magical pets, talking animals, and ridiculous adventures. Some were entertaining, but others changed the originals for all the wrong reasons. Before we expose these strange animated disasters, like the video and subscribe to the channel. Number 20. The Karate Kid, 1989. Instead of keeping Daniel LaRusso in California and building on his difficult journey as a young martial arts student, this animated spin-off sent him around the world searching for a magical object. Daniel, Mr. Miyagi, and a new companion named Taki travel from country to country, looking for a miniature Okinawan shrine with mysterious powers. That premise was a major departure from the films. The original Karate Kid was about an insecure teenager learning discipline, patience, and confidence. Its most famous sequence, the final tournament, works because Daniel must overcome fear and physical pain without abandoning Miyagi's lessons. Even the crane kick matters because the audience understands everything Daniel has endured before using it. The cartoon replaced that grounded emotion with treasure hunts, magical threats, international villains, and weekly escapes. One memorable early story follows the group into South America, where a young boy believes the stolen shrine can give him courage. Miyagi teaches him that confidence cannot come from an object, which at least resembles the philosophy of the films. Unfortunately, the series often treated karate as a convenient action tool instead of a way of life. Daniel became a generic cartoon adventurer, while Miyagi was reduced to delivering quick lessons between chases. It lasted only 13 episodes, suggesting that audiences were not desperate to see Daniel LaRusso become an animated Indiana Jones. Number 19. Teen Wolf, 1986. Turning into a werewolf was originally Scott Howard's unusual path toward popularity, confidence, and eventual self-respect. The animated version kept the transformation, but surrounded it with an entire family of werewolves, secret identities, supernatural visitors, and safer weekly problems. Michael J. Fox's original movie follows an ordinary teenager who discovers that he has inherited a family condition. At first, becoming the Teen Wolf appears to solve everything. Scott becomes a basketball star, attracts attention, and enjoys the popularity he always wanted. The famous basketball finale matters because Scott finally chooses to play as himself instead of relying on the wolf. The cartoon weakened that message by making the supernatural side of Scott's life feel normal. His relatives included Grandpa Howard, Grandma Howard, younger sister Lupe, and other characters who understood the family secret. Instead of one teenager being tempted by sudden power, viewers watched a sitcom about a household trying to hide its unusual nature from suspicious neighbors. Many episodes revolve around Scott transforming at an inconvenient moment or preventing someone from discovering the truth. Those situations could be amusing, but they lacked the emotional weight of the movie. Animated Scott was no longer struggling with an identity crisis. He was simply protecting a recurring television gimmick. Running for 21 episodes across 2 seasons, the series did not erase the original film. However, it turned a clever coming-of-age idea into a predictable collection of chases, transformations, and misunderstandings. 2 entries down, and the strangest transformations are still ahead. Subscribe now because some of the biggest franchises made the most unbelievable mistakes. Number 18. The Dukes, 1983. Once the General Lee left Hazard County and entered a race around the world, nearly all connection to the original series disappeared. This animated spin-off placed Bo, Luke, and Daisy Duke in an international competition against Boss Hogg and Sheriff Roscoe. The live-action Dukes of Hazzard followed 2 cousins living on a family farm while constantly avoiding the dishonest schemes of County Commissioner Boss Hogg. Car jumps, narrow escapes, and local corruption gave the show its identity. One of its most recognizable sights was the General Lee flying over a creek, roadblock, or unfinished bridge as the Duke boys escaped another trap. The cartoon increased those stunts until reality became completely meaningless. Each destination offered a different threat, treasure, race, or villain. Boss Hogg wanted the prize money, while the Dukes needed it to prevent him from taking their farm. Uncle Jesse often introduced their adventures by reading postcards to his pet raccoon. The setup gave animators permission to send the car almost anywhere, but it removed the small-town charm that made Hazard County feel like a character of its own. Without the familiar roads, local residents, and tension between the dukes and county authorities, the show became another globe-trotting race cartoon. 20 episodes were produced, and even the voices changed because of casting circumstances surrounding the parent show. The result looked familiar but felt strangely empty. The General Lee was present, yet the world that made it important had been left behind. Number 17. Alf Tales, 1988. A wisecracking alien hiding inside a suburban home was apparently not unusual enough. This spin-off took Alf and the animated residents of Melmac and forced them into parodies of famous fairy tales. The live-action sitcom worked because Alf was trapped in an ordinary human environment. After crashing into the Tanner family's garage, he had to remain hidden from neighbors and government authorities. His loud personality created constant trouble for Willie Tanner, while Alf's fascination with Earth customs made even simple household situations unpredictable. An earlier animated series had already moved backward in time to show Alf, then called Gordon Shumway, living on Melmac before the planet's destruction. Alf Tales moved even further away from the sitcom by casting those animated characters as Robin Hood, Sleeping Beauty, Aladdin, and other storybook figures. In the Robin Hood episode, Gordon leads a jazz-playing group of merry men against Prince John and the Sheriff of Nottingham. The guards are defeated through music, and the villains eventually receive a punishment involving years of unwanted television viewing. It is energetic nonsense, but very little of it resembles the original sitcom. The parody format removed the Tanner family, the danger of discovery, and ALF's position as an outsider studying human life. He became a general comedy mascot who could be inserted into any available story. 21 episodes were produced. The humor occasionally worked, but the spin-off proved that a popular character can be stretched so far that only the voice and appearance remain recognizable. Number 16. It's Punky Brewster, 1985. Somebody looked at a heartfelt show about an abandoned child finding a new family and decided that it needed a magical creature from another dimension. That creature was Glomer, a small furry being who could transport Punky and her friends into fantasy adventures. The original Punky Brewster balanced bright comedy with surprisingly serious subjects. Punky had been left alone by her mother before being taken in by photographer Henry Warnemont. Their developing bond gave the program its emotional center. Even when Punky caused trouble, the stories usually returned to responsibility, friendship, or the meaning of family. The animated spin-off used many of the same characters, and even brought back several original performers. However, adding Glomer changed the rules completely. Instead of dealing with school problems or Henry's understandable concerns, Punky could be transported to strange places, encounter magical beings, or escape impossible situations. A typical sequence would begin with Glomer misunderstanding Punky's wishes. His powers created a larger problem, forcing everyone to chase the magical mistake before returning home. The formula was harmless, but it turned Punky's imagination into literal fantasy. The cartoon lasted 26 episodes across 2 seasons. Younger viewers may have enjoyed seeing Punky in colorful worlds, yet the change weakened what made her special. Punky had originally survived through optimism, courage, and help from people who cared about her. Giving her a magical protector suggested that ordinary resilience was no longer exciting enough for Saturday morning television. Number 15. The New Archies, 1987. Riverdale's famous teenagers were suddenly turned into junior high students, as though making Archie younger would automatically make him more interesting to children. Archie, Betty, Veronica, Jughead, Reggie, Moose, and the rest of the group returned as smaller versions of themselves with updated clothing and 1980s attitudes. The Archie comics had survived for decades because their basic relationships were simple but flexible. Archie was caught between Betty and Veronica. Jughead remained devoted to food. Reggie created trouble, and the school environment produced endless social disasters. Their teenage independence was important because dating, driving, jobs, and school events gave the stories variety. By reducing everyone's age, the cartoon removed much of that freedom. Romantic tension became innocent schoolyard jealousy. Adult responsibilities vanished. Riverdale felt less like a community and more like a bright location built for quick lessons and harmless misunderstandings. One frequently remembered element is the opening, which aggressively announces that the group is new, modern, and exciting. The music and energetic character introductions tried very hard to convince viewers that these younger versions were cooler than the originals. 14 episodes were produced during its single season. The series later inspired its own comic book continuity, so it was not completely forgotten. However, It helped popularize the strange belief that every established character could be refreshed by turning them into a child. Instead of expanding Archie's world, it made Riverdale smaller. Number 14. A Pup Named Scooby-Doo, 1988. Few cartoon trends were more aggressive than the decision to turn established characters into children. This time, Scooby became a puppy, while Shaggy, Fred, Daphne, and Velma became junior high mystery solvers. To be fair, the central formula remained intact. The gang investigated strange events, followed clues, ran from costumed creatures, and eventually revealed that the monster was usually an ordinary person. That structure had made Scooby-Doo, Where Are You?, a classic. The problem was the exaggerated characterization. Fred became obsessed with blaming a local boy named Red Herring, even when there was no evidence against him. Daphne became wealthy and demanding. Velma rarely spoke normally, while Shaggy and Scooby continued to react to everything with hunger or panic. In the first episode, Shaggy's bicycle disappears and the gang investigates a group of frightening green ghosts. The mystery creates the familiar chase scenes, but it also introduces the show's faster, louder style. Characters stretch, crash, dance, and react like figures in an exaggerated comedy short. Unlike several cartoons on this list, A Pup Named Scooby-Doo has many loyal fans, and some viewers consider it a clever parody of the franchise. Its music and animation had more energy than several earlier Scooby productions. Still, it weakened the atmosphere. The original had creepy mansions, lonely roads, and enough silence to create suspense. The younger version treated every mystery as an excuse for visual jokes. Scooby survived, but the darkness was almost completely removed. Number 13. The Flintstone Kids, 1986. Fred Flintstone was already childish as an adult, so turning him into an actual child created a serious problem. There was nowhere left for his personality to go. This spin-off followed young Fred, Barney, Wilma, Betty, and Dino through their early years in Bedrock. The original Flintstones was not simply a prehistoric children's comedy. It borrowed heavily from domestic sitcoms, placing adult problems inside the Stone Age. Fred worried about work, money, marriage, social status, and his friendship with Barney. The stone appliances and dinosaur machines were funny because they supported recognizable adult situations. As children, the group could no longer deal with those pressures. Fred became a loud schoolboy. Barney became his loyal companion, and Wilma became the sensible friend who reacted to their plans. Familiar names appeared, but their relationships no longer carried the same meaning. One of the most memorable parts of the show was not even focused on Fred. The Captain Caveman and Son segments featured the famous prehistoric hero raising a child version of himself. Other sections included Dino-focused adventures and stories built around school rivalries. The program lasted 2 seasons and 36 episodes, with multiple short segments filling each broadcast. It also changed established continuity, because earlier stories had suggested that some characters met as adults. The series did not destroy the Flintstones, but it reduced a clever working-class parody into a standard children's show wearing Stone Age clothing. Bedrock remained recognizable, while its original social comedy disappeared. Number 12. Popeye and Son, 1987. After decades of fighting Bluto, eating spinach, and rescuing Olive Oyl, Popeye was pushed aside, so his son could struggle with many of the same problems. Popeye and Olive were now married, while their child, Junior, became the main young hero. The classic Popeye shorts had a beautifully simple structure. Bluto created trouble, Popeye initially struggled, and a can of spinach gave him the strength to turn the situation around. The famous transformation sequence, muscles expanding as the music rises, became one of animation's most recognizable repeated moments. Junior complicated that formula because he did not want to eat spinach. He felt embarrassed by his father's old-fashioned habits and wanted to fit in with other children. Bluto also had a son named Tank, who regularly bullied Junior and continued the rivalry of the previous generation. Stories included sea monsters, lost treasure, birthday adventures, magical objects, and even family visits from Poop Deck Pappy. In one episode, Junior receives a genie. In another, Olive becomes involved in a baseball story. These plots were designed to make the Popeye world feel larger. Instead, the children often felt like softer copies of their parents. Junior's resistance to spinach could create a lesson, but everyone knew he would eventually accept his family legacy and gain strength. Only 13 episodes were produced. The spin-off demonstrated a common franchise problem. Replacing a unique hero with his child does not create a new story when the child is expected to repeat the same battles. Number 11. Hulk Hogan's Rockin' Wrestling, 1985. Professional wrestling already contained colorful costumes, exaggerated characters, heroes, villains, arguments, and dramatic confrontations. Somehow, the cartoon removed most of the actual wrestling. Hulk Hogan led a team that included Andre the Giant, Junkyard Dog, Wendy Richter, Tito Santana, Hillbilly Jim, and other popular performers. Their rivals were led by Rowdy Roddy Piper and included figures such as the Iron Sheik, Nikolai Volkov, and the Fabulous Moolah. That sounds like the perfect setup for animated matches. Instead, the wrestlers entered ordinary comedy plots involving car races, house cleaning, animals, robots, mistaken identities, and neighborhood trouble. Wrestling mainly determined which characters were heroes and which were villains. In one story, Junkyard Dog builds a robot from spare parts. Another shows Andre pretending to be a chef because he wants to impress his visiting mother. The contrast between their giant television personalities and these harmless situations created comedy, but it also removed the excitement that made children watch wrestling. The real performers appeared in live-action sections, yet professional actors provided the cartoon voices because the wrestlers had demanding travel schedules. That separation made their animated personalities feel even less authentic. The show ran for 2 seasons and 26 episodes. It helped promote wrestling stars as family-friendly celebrities, but it turned unpredictable performers into fixed cartoon stereotypes. The original wrestling programs sold the illusion that almost anything might happen. This spin-off gave audiences heroes who could rarely step outside a carefully controlled lesson. Number 10. Police Academy, the animated series, 1988. By the time this cartoon arrived, the Police Academy franchise was already famous for broad comedy, strange recruits, loud sound effects, and increasingly ridiculous sequels. The animated version did not calm anything down. It removed the remaining limits. Mahoney, Jones, Hightower, Hooks, Tackleberry, Callahan, and other familiar characters continued serving under Commandant Lassard. Captain Harris remained their frustrated authority figure, while criminal plots allowed the group to become accidental action heroes. The first movie had followed a group of unsuitable recruits entering a police academy after restrictions on new applicants were removed. Its memorable scenes came from personality conflicts. Jones imitating machines and voices, Tackleberry treating every situation like a major operation, and Quiet Hooks suddenly revealing a powerful voice. Those jokes depended heavily on performers such as Michael Winslow and David Graff. Animation could copy their behavior, but it could not recreate the timing and physical presence that made those scenes work. Instead, the cartoon added gadgets, recurring villains, impossible vehicles, and a police dog named Samson. The most recognizable animated sequences often involved the Academy's equipment turning into something absurd. Vehicles transformed, inventions malfunctioned, and Tackleberry responded to small dangers with oversized machinery. The show was not about inexperienced adults learning to work together anymore. They were already a team of colorful crime fighters. An impressive 65 episodes were produced, proving that syndication demanded quantity. Yet the cartoon flattened every character into one repeated joke. Mahoney was mischievous, Harris was angry, Tackleberry loved equipment, and Jones made noises. What had been an ensemble comedy became an animated product line with badges. Number 9. Laverne and Shirley in the Army, 1981. Military service had appeared in a 2-part episode of the original sitcom, but this cartoon treated it as a permanent setting. Laverne and Shirley became Army privates stationed at Camp Fillmore, where they faced orders from a talking pig named Sergeant Squealy. The live-action series had built its comedy around friendship. Laverne DeFazio was confident and streetwise, while Shirley Feeney was more romantic and hopeful. Whether they were working at a brewery, sharing an apartment, or chasing better opportunities, Penny Marshall and Cindy Williams made the friendship believable. Removing the performers from the screen immediately weakened that chemistry, even though they initially provided their own voices. Physical comedy was essential to the original. A look, hesitation, or chaotic entrance could communicate more than an entire page of dialogue. The Army cartoon replaced those details with secret missions, animal commanders, dangerous exercises, and exaggerated accidents. Sergeant Squealy constantly threatened to report the women to Sergeant Turnbuckle, creating a repeating conflict that resembled countless other military comedies. Later, Fonzie was added, and the title became Laverne and Shirley, with special guest star the Fonz. He worked in the motor pool and brought another famous face into an already crowded concept. 21 episodes were produced across 2 seasons. The show became even stranger when packaged with animated versions of Mork and Mindy and Happy Days. Instead of allowing Laverne and Shirley to grow, the franchise trapped them inside a Saturday morning machine where every recognizable character could be combined, recycled, and sold again. Number 8. The Animated Mork and Mindy, 1982. Robin Williams had turned Mork from Ork into a television phenomenon through speed, improvisation, strange voices, emotional honesty, and a style that could not be predicted. The cartoon attempted to reproduce that energy without Robin Williams. This version presented Mork and Mindy during their teenage years. Mork remained an alien assigned to study Earth, but his adventures now included a younger Mindy, her father, a child named Eugene, and Mork's strange pet creature, Doing. The stories were packaged inside the Mork and Mindy, Laverne and Shirley Fonz Hour. The original sitcom followed an adult Mork living in Boulder and reporting his discoveries about human behavior to his superior, Orson. Its famous closing reports allowed comedy to become unexpectedly thoughtful. After spending an episode misunderstanding emotions, family customs, money, or relationships, Mork would explain what he had learned. The animated spin-off kept the surface details but lost the dangerous spontaneity. Cartoon Mork could stretch, crash, float, or create visual chaos. Yet those abilities were less surprising in a world where every character was drawn. One episode sends Mork, Mindy, and Eugene to a circus, where an unpleasant ringmaster steals Doing. Another story involves Mork accidentally placing prize money inside a blender. These events provide movement but little emotional discovery. The larger program lasted only 1 season. Without Williams, Mork's unusual speech and behavior became an imitation of a performance rather than a real personality. Animation should have freed the character. Instead, it revealed how much the original depended on one irreplaceable actor. Number 7. The Fonz and the Happy Days Gang, 1980. Fonzie had already jumped over a shark on water skis, but even that famous moment looked restrained compared with this cartoon. Here, Fonzie, Richie, and Ralph travel through time with a future girl named Cupcake and a dog called Mr. Cool. The original Happy Days began as a nostalgic family comedy about life in 1950s Milwaukee. Richie Cunningham dealt with school, dating, parents, and growing up. Fonzie gradually changed from a mysterious local outsider into the show's most popular figure. His famous moments, starting machines with a touch, entering the Cunningham home without knocking, or facing challenges in his leather jacket, worked because everyone treated him like a legend. The cartoon made those abilities almost meaningless. When characters are traveling through ancient history, futuristic worlds, pirate eras, and fantasy locations, being the coolest man in Milwaukee is no longer particularly useful. Cupcake's time machine carried the group into a new period each week. They encountered villains, tried to return home, and relied on Fonzie's confidence to survive. Mr. Cool frequently copied his owner's attitude, giving the series a second miniature Fonzie. Henry Winkler, Ron Howard, and Donnie Most voiced their characters, which provided some authenticity. However, Potsy was missing, and the Cunningham family barely mattered. 24 episodes were made. The series replaced nostalgia with science fiction chaos and turned Fonzie from a street-smart character into an all-purpose superhero. It did not expand Happy Days. It proved that network executives believed a leather jacket could hold together any idea, including one that had nothing to do with the original show. Number 6. Gilligan's Planet, 1982. After failing to escape one island for years, Gilligan and the other castaways finally built a working spacecraft. Their reward was becoming stranded on another planet. That single decision explains everything strange about Gilligan's Planet. The original sitcom trapped 7 very different people on an uncharted island after a short boat trip ended in disaster. Every possible rescue attempt failed, frequently because Gilligan made an innocent mistake. The repeated frustration became part of the joke. An earlier animated spin-off had already returned the characters to the island. This series needed a larger gimmick, so the professor somehow helped construct a spaceship from available materials. The group launched into space, encountered a cosmic storm, and crashed on an unknown world. From there, the characters faced alien creatures, unusual environments, strange technology, and weekly science fiction dangers. Gilligan even discovered a shape-shifting alien pet named Bumper, who could transform into different objects and animals. Several original cast members returned to voice their characters, including Bob Denver, Alan Hale Jr., Russell Johnson, Jim Backus, Natalie Schaefer, and Dawn Wells. Tina Louise did not participate, so Ginger was voiced by someone else. Only 13 episodes were produced. The cartoon tried to preserve the familiar personalities, but the premise damaged the central joke. If the castaways could construct a spacecraft, the old question of why they could not repair a boat became impossible to ignore. The island had created a contained social comedy. The alien planet created unlimited possibilities, but removed the simplicity that had made the original situation funny. They escaped their famous prison, only to become trapped inside a weaker television idea. Number 5. Slimer and the Real Ghostbusters, 1988. For many fans, this was the moment when a surprisingly clever supernatural cartoon became a loud showcase for its cutest character. The Real Ghostbusters had successfully continued the adventures of Peter, Ray, Egon, Winston, Janine, and Slimer after the original movie. Then Slimer moved toward the center of everything. The 1984 film was a comedy about struggling scientists who turned paranormal research into a business. Its most famous sequences combined dry humor with genuine supernatural tension. The library ghost, transforming before the team, Slimer attacking Peter in the hotel, and the giant Stay Puft Marshmallow Man walking through New York. Early episodes of The Real Ghostbusters often understood that balance. Some stories were strange, frightening, or surprisingly intelligent. The ghosts could be dangerous, and the team members had distinct personalities. The 1988 retool expanded the show into an hour-long block and added Slimer shorts. These stories focused on Slimer's life around a hotel, where he dealt with workers, animals, visitors, and Professor Dweeb, a scientist determined to capture him. The visual style was brighter, and the comedy was broader. Slimer transformed from an unpredictable ghost into a cheerful cartoon star who behaved like a supernatural child. The opening was changed to emphasize him, and the entire program was retitled. Not every later episode was bad, and younger children may have preferred the slapstick. Nevertheless, fans often separate the darker early seasons from the network-directed years that followed. The spin-off did not merely add material. It changed the public face of the show. 4 intelligent ghost hunters were pushed aside so a green mascot could eat, shout, and escape another trap. Number 4. The Super Mario Bros. Super Show, 1989. Nintendo's most famous hero entered American television through a combination of animation, live-action plumbing comedy, celebrity guests, dancing, and an unforgettable performance by professional wrestler Captain Lou Albano. Each episode opened with live-action Mario and Luigi working from their Brooklyn plumbing shop. A guest would arrive with a problem, the brothers would misunderstand something, and the situation would lead to broad jokes. Albano then appeared in the animated segment as Mario, while Danny Wells played Luigi in both formats. The cartoon borrowed settings and enemies mainly from the first 2 Super Mario Bros. Games. Princess Toadstool, Toad, and the brothers fought King Koopa in worlds that frequently parodied movies, history, television genres, or popular stories. Instead of presenting the mysterious Mushroom Kingdom as its own world, episodes transformed it into whatever joke the writers needed. Mario might become a cowboy, secret agent, gladiator, or fairy tale hero. King Koopa changed costumes to match each theme. The show's most famous moment may not be a story scene at all. It is Albano performing Do the Mario, swinging his arms and instructing viewers to move from side to side. The sequence is both charming and impossible to forget. 65 episodes were made for syndication, with Mario cartoons airing from Monday through Thursday, and The Legend of Zelda appearing on Fridays. The program introduced many children to the characters, yet it also reduced Nintendo's strange fantasy world to noisy television parody. Mario's games were built around movement, discovery, and player control. The cartoon asked viewers to sit still while Mario explained jokes, promoted pasta stereotypes, and waited for the next commercial. Number 3. The Legend of Zelda, 1989. A quiet fantasy hero became a sarcastic teenager whose main ambition appeared to be receiving a kiss from Princess Zelda. For many fans, that change was more frightening than anything Ganon could summon. The animated series aired on Fridays as part of the Super Mario Bros. Super Show and lasted 13 episodes. Link and Zelda defended Hyrule from Ganon, who controlled the Triforce of Power. The heroes possessed the Triforce of Wisdom, and much of the action involved Ganon trying to steal it. The early games gave players limited information about Link. That silence allowed them to imagine his personality, while exploring forests, graveyards, mountains, caves, and dungeons. The dangerous world felt lonely, and every hidden passage encouraged curiosity. Television Link was anything but quiet. He complained, flirted, joked, and repeatedly tried to persuade Zelda to kiss him. His best-known line became famous because he used it so often. "Well, excuse me, princess." The phrase survived far longer than the actual series, but not necessarily for flattering reasons. Zelda was more active than the helpless princess seen in some early game material. She carried weapons, confronted enemies, and frequently rescued Link from his own mistakes. That was a strong idea. Unfortunately, their constant arguments made both characters seem trapped in a repetitive comedy routine. Stories included magical mirrors, underground threats, royal visitors, monsters, and attempts to steal pieces of the Triforce. The show contained recognizable locations and sound effects, but it rarely captured the quiet wonder of playing the games. The spin-off did not ruin Zelda permanently. Nintendo's later games developed a far richer identity. However, for years, this cartoon remained the clearest warning of what could happen when an adaptation replaced mystery with non-stop dialogue and turned a legendary hero into an irritating television teenager. Number 2. Rambo, The Force of Freedom, 1986. John Rambo began as a traumatized veteran pushed into conflict by abusive authorities. 4 years later, he was leading a colorful team of international heroes in a daily cartoon designed partly to support a toy line. The transformation was almost unbelievable. First Blood follows Rambo as he enters a small town and is treated as a threat because of his appearance. After being arrested and mistreated, his wartime memories overwhelm him. He escapes into the mountains, using survival skills against the officers pursuing him. The most famous scene arrives near the end, when Rambo finally breaks down in front of Colonel Troutman. He describes the pain of returning from war, losing friends, and discovering that ordinary life no longer has a place for him. That emotional collapse reveals that the film is not simply about an unstoppable fighter. The cartoon removed nearly all of that complexity. Colonel Troutman sends Rambo around the world as leader of the Force of Freedom. His team battle as SAVEG, an international organization commanded by General Warhawk. Colorful vehicles, secret bases, recurring enemies, and clear moral lessons replaced political anger and psychological damage. A typical episode opens with SAVEG stealing technology, threatening a community, or controlling an important location. Rambo receives the mission, gathers his team, survives several traps, and stops the villains without the consequences associated with the films. The series ran for 65 episodes after beginning as a 5-part miniseries. It was the first animated television series adapted from an adult-rated film franchise. Children received an exciting action show, but the cost was enormous. Rambo's pain became a costume, his survival skills became superhero powers, and a character created to question society's treatment of veterans became a smiling defender of the status quo. Few adaptations have misunderstood their own hero more completely. Number 1. RoboCop, the animated series, 1988. No 1980s cartoon transformation was more contradictory. RoboCop was a dark satire about corporate power, media manipulation, privatized law enforcement, and the destruction of one man's identity. The animated series turned that warning into children's entertainment. The original film is set in a decaying future Detroit, where Omni Consumer Products plans to control the police department and rebuild the city for profit. Officer Alex Murphy is critically injured by criminals before OCP uses what remains of him to create RoboCop. Several scenes became unforgettable. The malfunctioning ED-209 demonstration, the exaggerated television advertisements, RoboCop returning to his former home, and the moment he remembers pieces of his life as Murphy. Beneath the metal suit, the story asks whether a corporation can truly own a human being. The cartoon kept RoboCop, Ann Lewis, OCP, the old man, and the futuristic city. It even included stories in which Murphy struggled with his humanity or worried that newer machines would replace him. On paper, those ideas sound faithful. In practice, the sharpest edges were removed. Weapons often fired lasers, criminals used colorful technology, and confrontations followed the safe rules of children's television. RoboCop battled robots, monsters, thieves, and exaggerated villains while delivering clean conclusions. One memorable episode concept places him against a machine designed to replace him, repeating the film's fear that OCP views workers as disposable products. Yet the cartoon could not explore that idea with the same cruelty or anger. The corporation remained available as a villain, but the program itself was part of the merchandising system the movie had mocked. Only 12 episodes were broadcast in 1988. The short run suggests that RoboCop was easier to print on lunchboxes than to rebuild for Saturday mornings. This spin-off earns the top position because it did more than simplify the original. It reversed its meaning. A brutal satire warning audiences about corporations turning people into products became a product that encouraged children to admire the corporation's armored creation. RoboCop still looked powerful, but the uncomfortable human soul inside the machine had nearly disappeared. The 1980s gave us unforgettable cartoons, but it also proved that popularity could be dangerous. Once a character became successful, networks tried to make that character younger, safer, louder, and easier to sell. Some of these spin-offs remain fun, guilty pleasures, while others misunderstood everything their originals were trying to say. Which cartoon damaged its franchise the most? Share your choice below, like the video, and subscribe for more forgotten stories from television history.